as for the Rev, so if you are a Rev, can you please go and stand on the green portal? Everybody else come to the opposite side towards purple for me. Okay. So, Revs, first of all, what I want to do is I just want to go through some mechanics of the spec, alright? Because it functions differently to the other Guild Wars specs in the sense that if you've played Guild Wars 1, it'll be very familiar to you. If you haven't, then it'll be completely alien. In Guild Wars 1, the only way you were able to activate any of your skills was by something, energy, mana, whatever they wanted to call it. It's the same principle on a Revenant. You've got energy up to a maximum of 100. You always start at 50. If you cycle through your legends, if you've got 0 on one legend and you cycle through to another, you will always replenish back to 50 at point of switch. When you're in combat, that increases. And when you're out of combat, if you're at 100 and you suddenly become out of combat for any reason whatsoever, it instantly drops straight back to 50 on an auto reset. So don't think you can trick the system by getting into combat, coming out, and then re-engaging with 100 energy. It doesn't work. From a traits perspective, I've just got the website up and I'm looking at our current build as well. I'm going to give people options based on personalities and playstyles. Now, if we go through the invocations trait line first, on your first minor, you've got Invoker's Rage, gain Fury where you invoke a legend. That's really self-explanatory. Every time you switch into one legend to another, you're going to gain 5 3/4 seconds of Fury. That's important because if you look at the way your build's structured, you've got a base crit chance of at least 48% without world buffs, okay? It's slightly higher than that, but it's about, essentially it's 50% base, and it will pop up to 60 with all your sigils, which we'll go through. That Fury, when it's up, when you're in combat and you've got everything rolling, you'll be at 100% crit chance pretty much throughout the entire fight, which means you are critting every single hit, which will come into your weapon skills, and they are big hits. Going on to your first minor, at the moment we've got Forceful Persistence in there. Deal increased damage while you have an active upkeep. It is your choice on this one. You can use this skill. It's mainly useful and beneficial when you're in Glint because you've got natural facets in your utility bar. For Shiro, it's not so great unless you're maintaining your F2, which is your facet of nature. So if you don't want to run that trait, it's an extra DPS increase, but if you don't want to run it and you're not comfortable running the facets mid-combat, or you're not comfortable running an upkeep while in Shiro, you can take the top one, which is Cleansing Channel, which removes a condition when you invoke a legend. Alright? Your choice, dependent on personality and your playstyle. I always use Forceful Persistence, but I'm used to running the spec, so I always have some form of an upkeep up in one way, shape or form. So your next trait on that, Ferocious Aggression. Deal increased damage and condition damage to targets while you have Fury. Once again, it's an invocation trait line. It's based on Fury and Fury procs. So when you've got Fury on you, you've got a higher DPS output again, 7%. More damage. Incense Response, gain might when you grant yourself Fury. Now, this is combat only, but this trait makes this build because of the way it works. If you put your facet of... if you put your Legendary Dragon Stance on and you activate all 3 of your utility facets, you'll notice that you can maintain... It fluctuates between 10 and 12 stacks. You hit 12, it drops to 11 and then pops at 10. So you're maintaining 10 permanently quite easily. When you are in combat, you can maintain... In fact, just click on me, guys, so you can see this. Puff, I'm going to hit you once and then disengage. Right, now I'm in combat. Watch my stacks. You see that? Okay, so the second you are in combat, you can maintain 25 stacks of might without any input from any other spec, just because of that one trait and the way the Herald works, okay? That might stack is huge, and I'll show you why. I'm going to take Puff to my maximum range, using my Hammer 2. He's literally just out of it, you bastard.
Missed.
And I'm still... There you go, 9k on one hit, alright? I know he's on a squishier class because he's on a backline rev, but 9k on a hit, and you're aiming at hitting... Sorry, mate, I didn't disengage. You're aiming at hitting 5 people with that. It's a huge damage increase.
That's
Shit,
Shinko,
yeah,
anyway.
sorry, that's Shinko, that's still Puff. Sorry, Shinko, mate. It's your fault, you're playing in Azura, I thought you were Puff. So, with that one trait and that one trait alone, you'll be able to maintain 25 stacks of might as long as you are maintaining 2 facets, and that's your fury and your might facet, which is your elements and your strength. Okay, in combat, if you maintain those 2, sorry, your darkness and your strength, you maintain those 2, you will have 25 stacks of might inside of 4 seconds of engaging combat. It's massive the way it stacks, but you're also giving those that might to your group as well. So jumping across one more, empty vessel, invoking a legend now breaks stun. Really, really important. If you run out of stun breaks on any of your utilities, which we'll go through, just changing a legend will break you out of some shit that you're in for you to be able to get out. Handier if you're able to go from Glint to Shiro, but if not, it's still a stun break, so remember it's there. And then finally, rolling mists, and this is the thing that this is kind of like the lock and key to the build. Critical chance has increased effectiveness when you are under the effects of Fury. We all know Fury gives us 20% increased crit chance. This trait doubles it. So you effectively get 40% the second you've got Fury. So you take a build that's got 48% crit chance, you take the precision runes on stack that you've got when you kill somebody that goes up to 25, that takes you to 60%. You get Fury on you, you're instantly at 100%, plus 25 might stacks, and you've got Fury because you're getting all those benefits. It's massive crit chance, and this is why, and hopefully you'll start to see, this is why backline revs are so popular with the power meta. They're just insane for DPS output. They can maintain their own stacks of might without needing any group support whatsoever. There aren't too many specs that can do that by just standing here doing absolutely bugger all. And it's exactly what we're doing. So going down to your devastation line, your first one, exposed defenses. Your first attack when entering combat applies vulnerability. This ability is refreshed when you use an elite skill. So every time you attack someone, you'll apply 5 stacks of vulnerability. Once again, that's for DPS increase because it's 5% extra damage that you're applying to them, plus any other vulnerability that's put onto them. Vicious lacerations, your first minor large trait. When you attack while wielding a sword, gain a stack of vicious laceration. This can be stacked up to 5 times. This is obviously only going to work if you are wielding a sword. Okay. If you are using the staff option, the only trait you can take is Lesser Jade Winds. And the reason for that is because those 2, the top and the middle, are all subject to you using sword. It is down to you guys again, and I'm giving the revs complete freedom on this one. If you want to run sword shield, if you want to run sword axe, if you want to run sword, or if you want to run staff as your offhand weapon, it's completely down to you. They've all got their own benefits and their own merits. Personally, for single target focus spike, I will always use sword. If I wanted more defensive and support, I will always run staff. It's down to you, and we can go through them all at a different time when people are more in depth and looking at which offhand set they want to run. But if you are, just remember, if you don't have a sword in any way, shape or form, if you are running staff, you have to use the bottom trait. If you're running sword and you're running an offhand axe or an offhand shield, use vicious lacerations. If you're using sword, use ferocious strikes. Okay. Targeted destruction. Deal increased damage to targets with vulnerability. Once again, just another DPS increase. Same as your invocation line, 7%. Assassin's persistence. Increase the ferocity of nearby allies. This is amongst the Herald's benefits. It's got major group buffs. This is one of them that really helps the backline. If you think about the backline Scourge being power Scourge and you being a power-based build and the Weavers being power-based, ferocity and crit damage and your power are the 3 core elements that give you that DPS output. This increases that for all of your group. The second you're in combat on a radius of 600, you'll provide your allies with an extra 225 ferocity, which, if I'm not mistaken, is about 9% extra critical damage on top of what they currently got. So it's a nice crit damage buff for you and for the rest of your group. So make sure, when we're in the back line and we're flanking, try and stay within a group or as close to your group members as you can, because you are giving them more DPS output. Focus siphoning. When you strike foes that have vulnerabilities, siphon life from them. For a minor trait, that's actually really, really strong. So you're already given vulnerability out, and vulnerability is a natural condition that gets passed out or converted. If you are hitting somebody with that, notice it doesn't have an ICD on there. I'll double check on Wiki. You're gonna deal another 103 damage and your life siphon 57. Doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're on your hammer and you're proccing that on a 5 target AoE, a couple of hundred health every hit, it's nice, especially just for the sake of the fact that it's on a trait and you're not having to buy foods to do it or anything like that. And your final trait in the devastation line, Swift Termination. Deal increased damage to foes below the health threshold. I call this a snowball skill. Reapers have got it with Reaper's Onslaught. Other classes have got it. I think the Weavers have got it as well. I'm fairly confident that Berserkers and everybody else will have it like that. This is the one for the Rev. So the second somebody drops 2 or below 50% health, you instantly get a damage buff of 20%. So it's just an increased ability for you to be able to put that person down. So when you see me calling for targets to be spiked, for example, if I turn around and we're fighting and all of a sudden I say low target here and you see a square go above their head, if you aim at them and you focus that target, you will naturally be doing more damage than you generally would in combat to a full health target, because I'm trying to kill them, and that's why I tend to do that. So keep those traits in your head. So onto the Herald. The reason we're staying with Herald and not going with Renegade. Renegade is more selfish, Condi based spec that gives itself an awful lot of Condi mitigation ability, especially in its Grandmaster trait line. It does give buffs, but nowhere near as much as the Herald line. So the first one in the Herald line, Facet of Nature. You obviously gain access to Facet of Nature. When you've got Facet of Nature active, you give everybody around you a plus 33% boon duration increase. It's on a -2 pip, so of that 5 pip increase, it will take 2 of them away. Backline revs don't generally run and hold on to that. So what I've generally taught the revs that have been through courses with me before is that prior to going into combat, so we're stacking, looking at the enemy, and I'm turning around and saying, right, we're going to engage on the right, move in 3, 2, 1. The backline decide to come on the left to try and flank and rotate. Before we engage on the bomb, I call it a boon bomb, but I literally just double tap my Facet of Nature to give all of those boons right before we're about to engage, so that I know I've got the might, I've got the fury, I've got the swiftness, so that the first thing I'm able to do when I put my Hammer 2 down is get the biggest proc I can. And that means the entire group, the Weavers, the Scourge, the Chronos, everybody that's been around me during that boom bomb that I've just done has got all of those boons as well as everything on my facets that I've been activating. So don't forget that's there, but whatever you do, don't upkeep it and don't think that you have to upkeep it, because I use it specifically and I expect the backline revs to use it very specifically to generate key boons when they're going to count the most, and ferocity is going to be your biggest one. As long as you've got ferocity, you'll have a 100% crit chance. You're going to be hammering down all the time, and you're always going to crit for at least 8 to 12k without even trying. Heavy armor targets, 7.5, 8 to 10k easy. You've just got to make sure that you're using the right boons. But when you use this skill, guys, when you activate your F2, and I'm going to put this in the call sheet, Sash, please remind me. Call Boom Bomb, okay? It's nice for me to know that you guys are doing it, because it lets me know that those boons are being shared in the backline. But it also refreshes your memory to know that you've got a double proc it. If you do it once, you lose 2 energy pip, and it just starts to degenerate, and that's it. Pop it twice, you get all of those key boons, and it's going to make a massive difference to your bomb. Alright, so use the word Boom Bomb. If we've got 5 revs and I hear 5 people call it, great. More boons. Lovely for everyone. Moving on. Right, hardening persistence. I had a chat with Rudy about this when he was talking about it. Rudy seems to like running Radiant Revival, which is the one just above this. Gain Infused Light when reviving a downed ally. Infused Light converts or inverts all incoming damage, Condi, physical, whatever it is, into healing. This skill gives you it for 2 seconds, so you can revive somebody, and for 2 seconds, everything they do heals you. I don't personally like it, and on a backline spec, I think you should be focusing on targets rather than trying to res somebody, especially when we've got medic scourges in play. So hardening persistence gives you the ability, when you are in glint more specifically, when you're maintaining those your upkeeps in the utility, it increases your toughness, which increases your ability to take a little bit more damage. It's only 40, but 2 skills is 80 toughness, and it's free. It's just in a trait line, and the others aren't really that beneficial. So hardening persistence literally just gives you the ability to tank that little bit more. Vigorous persistence, gain increased endurance regeneration when you have an active upkeep. So your upkeeps are anything that costs you energy to maintain. So your your dragon stance is a prime example. Every single one of those utility skills, the heal and the elite, are all upkeeps. This means that while you're maintaining that, your endurance regeneration increases by 25%, giving you the ability to dodge more. More evades, more sustain, more ability to reposition. On a backline spec, it's priceless. Shared empowerment. When you apply a boon to an ally, also apply might to nearby allies. So this is kind of like a double benefit, and this is why the Herald is still so strong. On your facet of elements, every time when you activate, your facet of strength, when you activate it, it starts to pulse might every 3 seconds. And that might lasts for, based on this, 23.25 seconds. This trait, every time you give somebody might, gives them another stack for another 15.5 seconds on a 1 second cooldown, so it doesn't affect the upkeep in any way, shape or form. So every 3 seconds you're giving 2 stacks of might to somebody. So if you do the simple maths on that, you can quite easily maintain 10 stacks of might without even trying. And that's just from activating one skill. Really, really strong and really nice for damage output. DPS. Envoy of Sustenance, gain increased concentration. That just helps your boon duration. And with your facet of elements, when you double proc, you've got an increased boon duration of 200 plus 240. Not much, but it's still there. And when you activate your facet of elements on double tap, facet of nature on double tap, you get an extra 33% onto all of the boons and the durations that you can see that they've got there. So it's just a nice increase on your boons. And finally, Elder's Force, increased damage per boon on you. Hopefully that one trait explains why I use my boom bomb when I do. Okay, so if you take a look at your facets, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 unique boons that are applied to you when you double tap that boom bomb. You get 2% damage per boon on you, so just yourself proccing that double tap before you engage, you give yourself a 10% DPS increase while those boons are active. If you've got any other group members providing you additional unique boons to the ones you've just given yourself or are maintaining, it increases your boon your damage output. We'll move to the weapons then. So your bread and butter on this spec is your hammer, without fail. The biggest damage dealing skills are 2, 3 and 5, although 1, in all honesty, is pretty hard hitting. So if you come and stand with me, and Perry looks like a nice inviting target, hit him with your auto attack once and then disengage. Sod. Alright, wait for that to drop, and now do it now. Okay, so your auto attack is a 3k hit on a heavy armor target, okay, and Perry is tanked up to shit because he's wearing Minstrel's armor, which we all know, so he's running 3.4k armor. Disengage, guys. That's a 3k hit, okay. Perry has identified something there which you do need to know. If you are auto attacking, be bloody careful, because that 3k hit on him is bigger on you, and if it gets reflected, you need to move fast. If you don't, you'll kill yourself. Okay, auto attacking is good, it's nice, but make sure you're watching out for bubbles and any reflects, because it will get you killed fast. You can hit yourself twice with that thing and kill yourself, even with 18k health. It hurts. Your hammer 2 is your bread and butter. It's the biggest damage dealing skill that you've got in your arsenal, and as long as you've got it at range and at the correct range, which is 1200, the way it works, if you proc it, if you activate it, so stay here, if you activate it and it hits here, it will do a certain amount of damage. Slightly further, it hits for slightly more, and at maximum range, it hits for its maximum value. If you look at the skill, you'll see it. Slam the ground with your hammer, creating a cascade eruption of energy, okay? Cascading eruption of energy. The first impact is 1,723, not much at all. Second impact is 2,412. Third impact is 3,101. The impacts are based on range. So, if you have an enemy target here, an enemy target here, and an enemy target here, it will hit all 3 for different values, but this one will take the largest amount of damage. It also means that if you're aiming here for 1200 range, but you've got 5 people stood here, they will all take your damage, and these people standing here will get no damage whatsoever, because it will proc 5 targets. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep. Cool. So make sure you've got your range, and also it's an AoE, but look at the skill and look at the animation. It's a line of sight AoE, okay, traveling along the ground. So only within the area that you can see it will it actually AoE and proc. So you've got to make sure that you're within that area. So Perry, can you just stand... Fluffy, come back to where you were. Keep coming back.
Already
keep coming back.
half
Stop
dead.
there, stop there, stop there. It's all right. There, stay there. Right, Perry, can you come to the right-hand side of her slightly? That's it. Now move forwards, that's it. Come left just a teeny tiny bit. That's it. Fluffy, where'd you go?
I'm invisible.
I need you to not be. Right, there she is. Right, okay.
I didn't do it.
Going in that same location. All right, guys. This is me targeting one person, which is Fluffy. Only she takes the damage. Even though Perry is right next to her and on a general AoE, he would get targeted and affected. It won't. So you've got to make sure you're targeting correct. You do not want to have a target selected when you're activating this. So, Tweety, can you do me a favour and go and stand on the orange portal for me? Okay, never mind. Perry, can you do it for me? Go and stand on the orange portal, that's it. So, just to show you why I don't want you targeting specific players when you're doing this. So keep an eye on Fluffy. Okay, I'm aiming at Fluffy, but I'm targeting Perry, all right? And I'm facing Fluffy. So I'm running towards her, I'm getting into 1200 range, I want to spike her, and I fucked up because the target I'm looking for is over here. Okay, it won't let you activate the skill. So look at Perry, and now try and activate your skill on Fluffy. And when I say look at him, I mean target him. But actually activate your F2, your number 2 on Fluffy. You're moving towards her, you're trying to get her. You will always focus away. He died. Right, leave him alone, come here. So you never ever want to target someone when you're trying to hammer 2, because 9 times out of 10 you'll always aim the wrong way to where you're trying to go, especially if they decide to move, if they blink, whatever it might be, you'll always get it wrong. So don't have a target selected, always aim blind, but aim for the way you're facing. Your hammer 3 is a really nice damage dealer, but it's also a chill, and it's an evade for you, and it combos as a blast. So if you've got water fields being dropped on the front line and they need sustain, and you're able to help them with that and you're not under any pressure, use it, but call blasting so that they know. So who have we got that can drop a water field? There we go, Tom. Right. So all you do, no matter where you are, 1200 range, drop it and you get the area healing effect. Alright. Seconds to that, and just to show you, Perry, can you move across to the opposite side of the map for me? If a target is moving, you need to learn to anticipate where they're going to be moving to, because you've got an animation time. So you've got to look at where they're moving, put the skill towards them, and as they go into it, then activate it. Okay? This isn't... Number 3 isn't one of those skills that you can just use randomly willy-nilly unless you've got an absolute blob of a squad in front of you that you're not going to miss from. If you're targeting a core set of people that are moving in a particular direction or moving to a particular direction, you've got to preempt where they're going to go and then put your skill down accordingly so that you get your proc. When you do hit, it will chill them for 2 seconds. It's a nice damage dealing skill. You will also evade any attacks aiming at you for 1.25 seconds, and it's a blast finisher, so if they happen to be in any fields, you'll also proc the field benefit as well. 4 is a nice projectile mitigation skill. It's a 12-second cooldown and it's a 6-second duration, so essentially it's a 50% uptime if you wanted to use it. So if we have Fluffy aiming at me and just auto attack 1ing all the time, if I wanted to mitigate that while doing anything, I can activate my 4 and she can't do anything to me. The nice thing about this skill, especially with a projectile weapon, is that it's a dark field. Now if you know your combo fields, dark fields when you put a projectile through them steal life. So if Fluffy's trying to aim at me or hit me with a projectile, and I then put my 4 up, if I just auto-attack her, I'm not only doing damage, but I'm also healing myself at the same time. Okay, so if you do come under pressure from range fire and it's projectile, use your 4, look for a target, and use your 1. As long as there's no bubbles or reflects up, you'll be able to gain health and mitigate the projectiles coming in towards you. Just remember, the projectile block is in front of you, the mist wall that you can see. It's not beside you and it's not behind you, it's directly in front. And finally, number 5. This is a really nice long range, 1200 range, 5 target, 2-second knockdown, okay, which also doubles up again as a blast. So Perry, move around the map for me. I'm going to try and show you guys. You got to anticipate movement on this skill as well, okay? And if they can see it coming in, they'll no doubt dodge, which Perry will. But if you can anticipate where they're going to move to, you can place the skill, and when they come into it, you'll CC them. There's the dodge, all right? You've got to place it where you see them moving to, not where they are. The biggest mistake a lot of revs make on this particular skill is that if they've got people pushing, so Perry, push towards me, and when I say stop, stop, push towards me. Stop there. They'll place the hammer there, where Perry is right now, which means by the time it's actually activated, the hammer's already, it's already too late, he's gone. Push towards me again, mate. You need to look at where they're coming, and if they're pushing, place it where they're going to be, and then CC, alright? You do it that way, and you use 3 and 5 preemptively, and you predict where people are going to walk based on, or run, based on the movement or flow of combat. You'll get the majority of those procs. It's a really strong CC, and the nice thing you can do with when you're trying to synergize your skills with the hammer. Harry, don't dodge out a second, mate. I want to show people. So if you can lock down a CC on your 5 and you've got all your other skills handy, if you lock down a CC on your 5, you can instantly 2, 3, and you can 2 as well. It's a shit ton of damage, and it creates a really nice sync combo sync. So that's your hammer. Does anybody have any queries or questions on the hammer?
Nope.
No? Okay.
With skill number 4, the come up field, does it also work with skill 3?
No. No, and you can try it if you want, because I have plenty of times, but if you try and target somebody and blast it, it doesn't actually do anything, because essentially the dark field, if you were to blast a dark field, you'd either give somebody, correct me if I'm wrong here guys, but you either give blind, you either give blind and it's smoke fields that are invis. So if you blasted a dark field, you'd give blind. So if I just look at Perry and I do that on him now, I don't blind Perry, I just put chill on him, so it doesn't combo with that. It'd be lovely if it did, because it's a really nice mechanic, but the biggest and most important one to remember on a rev, especially when you're on a hammer, if you're taking projectile damage, use your 4, think about your own sustain, and then hammer 1. Make sure you've got no reflex coming back at you. Having said that, if there are reflex coming back at you, you've still got your ward blocking them off anyway, so it's kind of like a game of tennis without the reflect on your side. But just keep that in mind, because they're all really nice skills. You can synergize them really, really well. If you can't get your 5 off, let's say Fluffy. Sorry, Fluffy, move around the map. Just keep running around. I'm trying to put my CC on Fluffy, and she just happens to evade it or whatever. If she doesn't, I can hammer 3, and if she's still moving, I can gain some distance. Hammer 5, hammer 3. Even at a decent range, hammer 2 works amazingly. So all you've got to do is learn your positioning on the rev. It's the biggest thing to this class, and it's the best revs get the largest amounts of damage, not because they know what skills to use, it's because they know the positions to be in to be able to get those skills down. If you learn that on your positioning, which we're going to go through on raid tonight, you'll be able to place a massive amount of damage down, and when people start to focus you, you'll be able to evade and get out of it.